In my first 17 years of life, Eli, the biggest challenge I had was in any facet of circles, family, friends, relationships, school. I felt that I never belonged. But because of that dream, because of that gift, I said, if I can turn this pain into power, I have to start leading. And I honed the leader in me through self education and through my gift. And that's powerful.
Emerge Stories is a place where, as the name implies, you are going to hear stories. Stories from people all over the Philippines who have come from many different types of backgrounds, and especially people who have gone through struggles, people who have gone through the challenging parts of life. And I hope that these stories will relate for you in some way, that some of these stories will really land for you because these people have gone through probably just about the same thing you might be going through right now. Welcome again to Emerge Stories. Today, I'm really happy to be joined by Lou, who goes by Ludership. His last name is Lucarini. He's a 26-year-old entrepreneur, author, and aspiring life coach from Cebu City, Philippines. He has really overcome a very challenging upbringing, including abuse and neglect, and he's used those things to fuel his personal growth journey. Lou has an extremely strong belief in the power of self-teaching, something near and dear to my heart. He's coached a bunch of people, built successful teams, trained leaders, and just really an amazing guy to learn from. I think he's a dynamic individual who has really transformed himself through adversity. And in this conversation, you'll hear us talk about things like discovering your breakthrough and unlocking your potential, forgiveness, finding belonging, and overcoming fear. If this sounds interesting to you, I hope you stick around and listen to the whole interview, and definitely connect with the EmergePH community, where you will find Ludership to be a pivotal ambassador of the EmergePH community who really brings tons of value to the people that you'll find in our online community that is free. So please jump into it when you get a chance and you can actually meet all of us. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Lou, welcome to Emerge Stories. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Eli. It's a pleasure to somehow get into this kind of show. And this is the first time I'm being interviewed on an online platform, and it flatters me the most. So,
Awesome. Well, I've gotten to know you a little bit in the last month or so, and I definitely think you've got some amazing stories to tell. So let's start out with thinking about yourself now compared to who you were, let's say, a couple of years ago. What are some things about you that you feel like, have really grown the most or that you're most proud of in changes in yourself recently?
so I would like to give three different transitions that are vital to my growth. And the first transition is I used to be a kid in elementary and high school that thought that academic education was the only way to learn. But in 17 years old, I had this group mate turned very close friend. His name's Christian, and he debunked that idea in me. And that was the powerful thing that I found. And grateful to him forever. He gave me this perspective saying, hey, your life is not limited in school to learn. Your whole life is a learning spirit. And when I learned that concept, I saw him doing business at the same age while he's doing school. I had a tough life. He had a tough life too. But the difference that he showed me was so big that, hey, you're just confined in four walls, listening to a person who just graduated, who did a bit of research, but it's not fulfilling. And with my curiosity, I inquired that, and he brought me to a business meeting and he talked to me about one thing, dreams. And that blew me away. I get to see business people who dropped out of school, single mothers who have undergone annulment, turn into brilliant entrepreneurs,
Nice.
and even speakers. So self-education was the first transformation through Christian that I've learned that I am saying I'm a proud self-educated person because I
Nice.
found it
Nice.
through him. Second is developing the gift out of my dream. And if you did notice, my mouth is always the one that operates naturally. And in school, it was debating, extemporaneous speeches, spontaneous conversations, coaching. But it was just a school perspective. But when he talked about dreams, he said, you have 7 billion people. That was way back 2016,
Mhm.
2017 when he
Right.
told me that number. It was so big. He said, why not you go chunk the pie off the cake and get your slice of it if you can reach 1 million people over your lifetime and be a great communicator. Wow. I was blown away. And I started developing that gift through self-education.
You
Then
started you started developing the gift, like your communication and speaking ability through on your own.
on my own,
Okay. I
and
want to dig into that later. Keep going.
sure.
Okay. What's number
And
three?
the third is leadership. At the time that we did business together, my goal was not to make money. My goal was to belong. And that resonated in me so well. In my first 17 years of life, Eli, the biggest challenge I had was in any facet of circles, family, friends, relationships, school. I felt that I never belonged. But because of that dream, because of that gift, I said, if I can turn this pain into power, I have to start leading. And I honed the leader in me through self-education and through my gift. And that's powerful.
Okay.
So
Love it. So that's very, very structured and easy to dig into. So I guess let's just go into those three in order. Honestly, there's really nothing in the human experience that I'm more an advocate of than taking ownership of your own learning and just seeing life as nothing other than learning and just that self-education, self-teaching. It's kind of how I didn't go to school. I don't have a high school diploma. I don't have a degree. And I've just always been a self-teacher, and everything that ever stuck and became part of me was something that I wanted to learn, like I got curious about. It was always so I think learning is always better when it's autonomous or voluntary. So this guy Christian that you met, was that in college?
college,
Okay.
yes.
And so he caught your attention because he started like telling you, school is not the only place to learn. So let's go a little bit deeper into what did you discover when you started, you listened, he got your attention, he took you to a business meeting, you said? Was this like network marketing, or what was this?
This is very interesting. So I'll backtrack a bit. So this was the first time that I led a group project in a minor subject, history, and he was the rebellious one. He's hard to reply. He doesn't catch up. He came in the last day before the deadline of the meeting. And I was asking him this question in kindness, ask him, why do you seem not interested? And you're just like freeloading your way, frank as I was. And he
Hmm.
said, we will have a long talk after that, and maybe we can talk that later. So, newsflash, we did lunch together, we went together, and he introduced me to network marketing. And yeah, that was the kind of business in he was. And that's where I figured that business was not all about money at all. Because in school, I had always thought that I'm paying this immense amount of tuition just to make this school, teach me a bit of what I'm supposed to know. And I said, I can learn a lot of things for free, belong myself to people that I trust,
Yeah,
become vulnerable in learning. And so that was a switch instantaneously. And we did business together for over a year. And
nice.
if, even though we failed in that business, I mean, the failure was just like the
Yep.
tip of the iceberg.
Y-
So
You and I have not talked about this yet because we haven't really had that many conversations yet. But I actually was a professional network marketer for like 4.5 years. That was what I did full time. After being an entrepreneur, like building traditional businesses, having some success, selling them, I actually did that, and it was really the entry to personal development. That's where I got introduced to Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, like a lot of ideas that completely changed me. And the business model itself, I'm okay with it. It's not for me. Like I need to innovate and I need to create more. But that doesn't matter. Like honestly, I would recommend to anyone go do it for a year, put your heart into it, you might make some money, but it doesn't matter because like you're going to learn like crazy and you're going to get some amazing ideas. Yeah, that's awesome. So can you remember a few of the insights, or let's say either, I don't know, authors or insights or just things that you can remember that were pivotal when you first started tuning into a, non-academic, non-linear way of learning?
so Christian also brought me to the feast. It was led by Bo Sanchez, a
Hmm.
charismatic Catholic
Yep.
preacher. And he introduced me into faith at a deeper level, not in the religious sense. And Bo Sanchez was the first author I read intently. I did have 12 or 13 books of him, and I studied that for a year. And you know what's amazing? He also introduced me to Robert Kiyosaki, which these two people are totally different,
Hmm.
but they gave perspective about what money really is and why people are desperate to really take the root of jobs versus serving in purpose and thinking of money as a tool, not as something that you're attached to and as your identity. And that transformed me. Imagine faith is so sensitive at some point that when you look into religion, there is this facet of money that is tied up with a very bad sense. And somehow, when I did business, it gave me a different light and it gave me a neutral perspective. In learning those from those two people, Robert and Bo, their language was neutral. And I said, I no longer need to be the negative person of who I was. And instead of that, develop a stable mind to understand the tools of the world so that you can build your dream. And I was like, that's
Hmm.
the best conversation I've heard from both of them.
Nice.
And that the ball kept rolling. I have learned from Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, Dale Carnegie, Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar, John C. Maxwell. These are my fathers.
That's awesome.
And it's pretty amazing that up until today, their wisdom is old but gold. They talked about the 50s, 60s, 70s business leadership styles, but
Mhm.
up until today, old is gold. I mean, that's the fascinating thing about those authors that I learned from.
So you realized that, you started to change your relationship with and your perspective on money. You started to see it as a tool rather than, the means to an end. What when it comes to business, a lot of the people you're talking about, let's say, well, some of them are really business oriented people. So Robert Kiyosaki, John Maxwell, Robert Kiyosaki's kind of all about money. Maxwell's all about leadership. But Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins really not so business focused. They're much, much more focused on showing people how vital it is to focus on growing yourself. What can you say about your perspective now on business success versus prioritization of personal development? kind of
So
kind of how they go together, or just how do you see those two? How do you see business and personal development? What's your framework on that?
there's a philosophy that I embedded myself with that connected to. I would say it and I quote, your breaking is your breakthrough. I speak about that for 9 years now. And businesses, startups, and personal development is so connected with each other because both talk about what? Ideas. And ideas emulate from the very perspective of the human being, your free will and intellect. Faith talks about that. I learned it from Bo, and I learned free will with Robert. And connecting the dots of business and personal development, you start ground up rock bottoms, failure, diving into the sea and getting drowned in an ocean that feels so overwhelming. And you're like, how do I get back up and float back and swim back? That's where the connection I see because if you cross the eye of the needle, it's breaking you, it's squeezing you, it's twisting you, making you turn. But when you go through that, because you have to go through, there's no other direction. You have to go through. You have to break through the eye of the needle every time
So it's
because the up and down of life significantly shows in that perspective that I've learned between the business development and the personal development. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, I agree. It sounds like you're talking about Gladys and I were just having a conversation similar to this the other day. It's kind of like you have to your old self kind of has to go through a death almost. So it's like you have to, and I'm not sure how many times we need to go through these kinds of things. It depends on how much we unpack or dissolve or break down. So maybe could you give us for anyone who hasn't really experienced this yet, where, and I have, like, I really know what you're talking about. I can feel what you're talking about because when you start looking at yourself closely enough to realize that lots of you got there somehow without you choosing it, and it isn't what you want to keep, and you have to reinvent yourself. You realize like it actually is painful, like letting go, deconstructing who you thought you were, letting go of your identity. It's not easy for people, and sometimes it happens when the external world puts a crash. Like you actually didn't choose the crash. So I've had both. I've had intentional reconstruction of myself, like reinvention, where I dismantled myself and fucking built myself without a crash. And then I've also had crashes that I probably brought them on unconsciously, and then I went through major transformations because those crashes that I created. But do you have any stories of either intentional reinvention that was painful, or a crash that kind of caused that kind of reinvention that you could tell a little bit of a story so people can imagine what that was like?
So I would talk about the crashing in a continuous pattern in the same timeline from one relationship alone. My mother and I had a very rocky relationship, Eli. After she found out that my dad had a different family, it came to her as a shock because I was the person who gave her the details that led her to see that. And having that confrontation, that seeing them, crushed me as a kid.
You told
I
me you
was
were
so
like 6.
6, yes. And as a kid who was so innocent, who was so curious, I didn't realize first step on what happened. And I didn't had to ask the question. But since then, since I was 6 through the 17th year, living at home with my mother, we had a relationship of neglecting each other, abandoning each other, misleading each other, deceiving each other. Physical, verbal, spiritual abuse was there.
Mm,
Unfortunately, another subject came in. A year ago that I was sexually molested by my very own immediate family member.
mm.
With all respect to him, I'm not going to talk about the details, but that crashed my identity as a
What
kid.
age were you then?
Five,
What's
four
oh,
or five.
wow.
And because of those crashes, I had no other choice but to get back up. I told myself, if school was the only way for me to get my achievement as a kid, I'm gonna do it. I'll be desperately dying, put myself at the top spot every time. But you know what? Ever since I was a kid, I was in an old boys school. I was top two, top three, top five out of 250, 300 boys in academic perspective. I never heard my mom tell me how appreciative
Mm,
she was. It pained me.
yeah. You
Before I
wanted her
was,
to be proud of you, right?
I'm sorry,
You wanted her to be proud of you.
exactly. And the words that were coming out from her was the total opposite.
Yeah.
And if I were to look back, had it been that my mom didn't have that pain when I discovered about that pain, how could had it been between me and her? And to cut the long story short, I figured that the only way for me to get out of the hole is to not please anybody any longer. I had to die of who I was so that I can birth the person I am becoming. Lisa Nichols. Inside Quest episode 8 or 9 years ago. That changed me. And because she said it so convictedly, I repeated hundreds of times watching that video in a series of days. It went back in my head. I spiraled that idea. And I said, you know what? I have nothing. I'm empty. I'm full of anger, hurt, wrath, all of these negative emotions that was not mine to begin with. It didn't belong to me. My glass was breaking. Hot and cold, rocks and soda and sugar. Think of all the things that don't match up together. That was how messed up my life was. And
Mm,
that's the term. It was just so messed up. And how do you do the mess? Since I was in school, I learned organization, categorization, and, you know, building the pieces together. Okay, why not? I'm going to dump all of this away. I'm just going to dump it. And when I decided to dump that, because it was years of pain that I was accumulated, Eli, it was not easy to dump it all off
mhm.
because you're so used to attaching yourself to the pain, to
Right.
the anger, right? And the
Like
sins,
being the victim.
exactly. Victim mindset. But you know what? I'm so young. I
So
have
you decided
80,
to let it go.
yeah.
Okay.
And you know what's powerful of letting go?
Everything.
When you let go of everything, you have the power to rebrand yourself.
Yeah, it's true. It's so hard for people to truly commit to it, but when you're really committed to letting go, it's actually not that hard. Yeah, it's beautiful. Really cool story. So you discovered, I think you told me before, you went on a trip with your dad when you were 6 and found out that like he has this other family your mom doesn't know, and somehow you ended up being the person that opened up the story. And so then on out you have this like 11-year relationship where you and your mom live together, but it's really not good. And like where did that go? I mean, what did that I guess you already just now said that at some point you decided to let go of all the pain and let go of all the, I don't know, resentment and victimhood. When was that, and what triggered the letting go of it? Like what was the, what was the period of time in your life? Was this already when you met Christian and you started getting introduced to ideas? Like what led to that decision to let go?
My dad, when I was in college, told me that, hey, you're 18. I have to stop giving you support. Because to give perspective about the story, since I was 6 up until that time, when I was still in school and my dad told me to stop, my mom and dad had a court case to support me financially. And that was the terror that I don't want to go back. And because of that, I drifted my surface. I was about to leave the semester hanging, and I didn't mean Christian up until maybe a month or two after my dad told me that, I'm gonna stop paying your tuition. And I was like, whoa, what's next for me? Because I did remember my family will always tell me I had to finish school because I was like the smartest in the camp. But that very dream I kept for so long, pleasing everybody else, was about to it was about to leave me. And I was like, what's next? And I don't know what kind of spiritual intervention this universe has that I cannot explain. Christian came in and I was like listening to him, very skeptical about life. And he told me about dreaming. Somehow I quitted school. But you know what's the best thing, Eli?
You actually quit. You
I
didn't
did
finish
quit
school.
school. I didn't finish school. I was on the second and a half to going through the third year
Okay.
of my psychology degree. And when I quit, it was another pain. But you know what I realized? There was one time,
And you quit mostly because your father stopped paying tuition. Okay.
yeah,
All right.
I had no choice.
Right.
Then again, if you connect the dots, the similarity there is you break, you have nothing. And when you have nothing, you can start again. And Christian showed me the way, and somehow we failed together in the business. It wasn't easy. That was the hard thing about building your identity, then making your own money and trying
Yeah.
to support yourself and everything. And we were just 17, 18. And so, it was a big risk.
And how is
And
so it sounds like you built, you from meeting him, getting introduced to these different authors and thought leaders who I think are also very amazing. And many of them were very influential to me. And by the way, impact theory has been a huge, we both has been very inspirational and an incredible source of great interviews. It's actually one of the inspirations of EmergePH is just that I think that kind of story needs to be told. So hopefully, stories like yours will inspire other people here. But sounds like you started to build an identity of a self-teacher and someone who was going to craft your future self. How has that served you, and what do you think about that decision so far?
Eli, I could not verbalize the gratitude, the humility, the integrity and the truth and the love that it gave me at first, and I've shared it to other people. It's priceless. No number, nor time, nor measurement could define that, period. And what's so important here is the brand leadership. This is the story. There was one person in my team. I did a peer group in the feast, that faith session. I was becoming a mirror to people who were desperate to get out of their personal death and how to live again. That was the message. And what's fascinating is she told me like, "Hey, Lou." She started calling me Lou. And Eli, the word Lou, this nickname is the nickname of my mother. And you know what's
That
so
your mother gave you? You mean
no,
it's
that's
her
the
nickname?
nickname that my family and
Calls
friends
your
would
mom?
call my mother.
Okay.
And you know the history I talked about since early and in our past conversations. My mom and I did have a rocky relationship. Every time I remember of her, I remember the pain. And I had to find a way to transform that pain into power, into wisdom, into understanding. And I said, why not? Because my second name is Luigi, and my My mom's name is Luella, you know. Why not I use the word Lu? And since I'm into leadership, I'm leading a small group of people. People gained following from me. You know what? I'm gonna make this distinct. I don't care if what people will think about that, but because I'm a leader and because I'm a communicator, I communicate powerful stories of the dead version of me that had transformed into the current living person. I'm gonna use that name, Ludership, and I've been carrying this brand, personal brand, for s- 7, 8 years. I don't remember exactly
Cool.
when did this happen.
Nice.
You know what's so powerful, Eli? Now, because I've forgiven my mother, we have our own boundaries. I let her live her life her way now.
Mhm.
Every time I hear leadership and Lou, and I'm called that now most of the time, it no longer hurts because I've let it go. And you know what's so powerful? The negative is never attached to it. I no longer have that resentment, regret, wrath, pride.
Beautiful. I
It,
love it.
your heart may be somehow telling you there's this negative thing, but you gain control, and that's the personal brand, and
Yeah.
it makes me think more stable and neutral. So that's the story behind the brand.
No, I think that's that I've written this book called Scary Equals Happy that's pretty close to being published and just a few steps left. But that's the epitome of what that book is about when something makes us uncomfortable. So when people are saying the name Lou to you, you instantly have this negative reaction, negative emotion pops up in you, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Back then.
Yes.
And
Yes.
most people are going to unconsciously, without realizing it, avoid. So you'd say, "Oh, maybe let's call me another name," right? Because the instant reaction would be find another nickname and tell people not to call you that because it's giving you discomfort. Is that fair? But
Yes,
you
correct.
decided to do the opposite and you leaned into it. You said, "Nope, that's uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it on purpose so that I can heal or, solve that reaction in me." And then it actually led to a more not just the emotion, the negative emotion associated with the nickname, but also you leaned into the relationship with your mom and forgave her. So it kind of became like a gateway or a door to the forgiveness, would you say? Almost like a
Exactly.
yeah, nice. That's amazing. I super love that. Very cool. Very good lesson there. All right. So for the sake of time, let's go to the second one that you gave us. You said that you developed, and maybe let's just stay a little bit tactical on this because I joined Toastmasters in 2014, I think, something like that, and I found it to be an incredible way to level up oneself. I think it's a great place for personal growth because you can practice your communication skills, you grow confidence. There's like a lot of things you get. You can get some leadership learning. I think Toastmasters is a little bit challenging to run a club because they need to become a little bit more modern. But other than that, it's just a really good way to do it. But a lot of people don't do it because it requires such a time commitment and reasons. But theoretically, you could actually upgrade your own communication skills on your own. I have some ways that I think it's possible, but I've not really met too many people who said, I, by myself, practiced and got better at communication. So I'd really be curious, like how did you say you did that yourself?
So I discovered in school, they do those psychological testing, and
Mhm.
the visual and the auditory is always like the balanced score. It's like extreme high. And this is what I do every day, Eli. I look at myself in the mirror. I talk to myself the words I would tell myself as if I am that person. And when did I learn that? Jim Rohn. The very person in front of you could be your friend or your enemy. And the important thing to rewire this thing here, this big guy right here, you talk to yourself the words that will make you matter, that will give you impact, that would make you the better version of yourself every day. You can never be your best, but why not? Talk to yourself in an hour. Tell yourself the things that you need to tell yourself. The hardest truths, the easiest good words you can compliment yourself that you are becoming. You don't have to be that person yet, but you have to tell that. And because this is the thing that I learned, complex coaching style. If you want to become the effective communicator, you have to be the mirror of the person.
Yeah.
And how can you be the best mirror of that person you're coaching, you're talking, you're listening and being empathic from. Be your own mirror. Talk to yourself in the mirror every day. When you
Nice.
wake up, go to the mirror,
Mhm.
look at your body, and talk to it as if you need to talk to it. And Eli, I learned this from Les Brown. As another author, he's another mentor I've learned too. You are a quality person. You are gifted. You are blessed. You are loved. And I talked to that myself. It was hard because there was pain, right? Going back, there was pain. And your system, your body, your heart is giving you vibrations that is skeptic about what you're saying to
Yeah,
yourself. And
this is amazing. I love it. So the framework that I'm working on, which is the wheel of limitless potential, has these 10 sections of life that we can be working on, right? But at the core is self-development, so personal development and self-relationship.
yeah,
And this, you're doing both right now. You're talking about talking to yourself in the mirror is maybe practicing some communication skills, but it sounds to me like it's more about self-relationship. Like you're learning to build yourself up, to be compassionate, maybe be honest with yourself when you need to, whip yourself into shape, but not criticizing yourself, not beating yourself up. Because a lot of people have our relationship with ourself is like the most important thing ever, right? And so, how do you think your relationship with yourself has improved through those processes, or the way you talk to yourself?
I just get shocked when people give me the feedback that I sound so confident, even though I don't feel like it. And you know what's humbling? Because they complimented you about something that you're not feeling bragged about, you don't feel your ego. That was powerful. And I learned the above the line model from Matt Casby, a dear mentor of mine. Be responsible for your life. Take into account what your life is all about and own it. And responsibility, accountability, ownership solidified the definition of that backtracking, talking myself to the mirror. Because the important thing of communication is the question, are you even confident about yourself, talking to yourself in any kind of communication you need to do?
Yeah,
And people will feel you even you're not speaking. The nonverbal cues, when they look at your mouth, if they look at your eyes, if they hear that the way you're stuttering is not in sync with what you're saying, they can feel that. They don't need to verbalize that. They don't need to define that, but you and yourself should be 100% convicted when you say something. And to be convicted, you have to go back to your roots, go back to you, talk to you, because your best audience is you.
mhm,
It's not your critic. It's not your judge. It's not the devil. It's you. It's just you. The neutral, stable, profound sense of you. If you
yeah,
can't face that, you can't communicate, period.
love it. So talk to yourself in the mirror every day. I like
Yes.
that. It's great. I don't do that very often. Always talking to myself in my own head. All right. So the third one, should we say leadership or leadership?
Yes.
Let's talk about belonging. And I think for for the sake of not having a 2 hour conversation today, let's just focus in on the belonging part of the leadership. You said that when you joined the business, I guess network marketing with Christian, that you did that primarily for the belonging, and that prior to that you never had felt like you belonged before. What can you say about community, the power of finding your tribe, people that you connect with? Like, yeah, just what are your thoughts on that whole topic and finding place you belong?
We have to go back to the empty self, the rock bottom self, the broken, the crashed version. Now, question, who is going to shake off the graveyards inside of you? And you're empty. You need to find a trustworthy source that you can be vulnerable, that you can tell your story. Even you cry, even you get mad, they will never care about that. All they care is you establishing you by helping you reframe the story. And I learned storytelling in business, and that was powerful. You get to attend a Wednesday business preview with the same speaker, with the same script.
Hmm.
That's powerful
Over and
because
over
the
again.
way that, yeah,
Yeah.
and the law of repetition states that the more you tell it, the more you listen, the more, you subscribe to it. You're this big guy here will always find a way to redefine it and find a better vocabulary, but it needs some shaking. I say shaking because when you notice when people are very convicted, the way that they speak things speaks different volumes. Like there's the trembling when they're talking about the hard part, and there's this big grin when they feel the success. Because when you're in a community, people with different vibrations, people with different perspectives, people with different stories, there's one thing that your brain does: observe. And if you attune to your brain's capability to use all your senses. And I'm not only talking about the five, there's seven, right? You have the six, the vestibulocochlear, which is the one here, like the balls that has the liquid inside, that creates the coordination of your body. And the seventh sense, which is the balance. Your whole body's peripheral nervous system connects to central nervous system to tell it, is your body still in sync with what you're doing? And when I learned that, Eli, the playology of life in senses, I exposed myself to communities. And I didn't care if they were strangers, if they were helpless, I didn't. I found that every community has a set of leaders. And I said, if I can mirror the very great things that they have been doing every day, I'm going to spend the time with them, no matter how long it takes. I have late nights, early mornings every day, Eli, when I entered business. I get only 3 to 4 hours of sleep, even up until now with my creative side. And if I'm like going out of work and engaging with different people, yeah, I used to I used to only belong in a community where I was the follower,
Hmm.
but there was a call to action deep inside. My heart was telling me, your heart is so big. Why not you learn the things that leaders are doing and bring that community to them? That was what Bo Sanchez taught me. And one facet that I can tell that I started leading was my service in this community, in this charismatic community. Eli, I'm not religious, but here's my role in the community.
You're talking about the community of the feast?
Yeah, the feast.
Okay.
Because this is where I learned leadership really the most compared to the business model.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
the business side was more of like the technicality of how you
Yeah.
can hone yourself.
And there's
But
always the focus on the short-term agenda of trying to,
yeah,
yeah.
which
So,
which for which for me, belonging needs the long term, the lifeline,
right.
the lifeline. And my role in the feast back then, and now I'm coming back after the pandemic, I have to read the scripture confidently in an audience of 800 attendees at least. And I did that every Monday and Saturday, Eli, for at
That's
least 4 to 5 years.
powerful practice.
You know what happened? You know what changed?
What's that?
It's not only the communication, it's my heart. When I see people speaking, preaching, talking about the story, talking about concepts about life, I felt that I felt that they were in that position too. Humble beginnings. That's what community teaches you first. Humbling yourself, learning from the best, so that when you are called later on to be that person, to establish the eternity of community, when you're called, you have no choice because you already know how it is, and your heart is so convicted
Mm,
because you're humbly starting at the beginning.
nice.
You can develop that. And that's where I found the profound leadership in me.
Love it.
People didn't know about me, but why do they care to listen to me? Why do they give me that sense of, hey, you're worth listening to? And that's where I found the leadership spirit in me, Eli. It
Nice.
never, what was that? I never felt I was in a cage. I felt I was in a marathon. I was not sprinting. I was not crawling. I'm just walking. I'll show up every time. And that's what community taught me. Regardless if you're 80%, 0%, 100%, show up
Show
and
up.
see the change. Because why?
Just keep
Your
showing up.
best, because
Yeah.
yeah, going
All
back
right.
to the observation, that's what it is. So,
Cool. So I've noticed that very few people intentionally get outside their circles that they kind of grew up in, right? Or most people are going through life, and I used to be this way, spending time around people who they are incidentally around, family, neighbors, schoolmates, workmates. Very few people are intentional about finding either individuals or communities to connect themselves to. So maybe as concise as you can, I would just like to ask kind of a two-part question. What are some of the benefits that you've gotten? I think you've already touched on this, but if what if you were going to try to sell people on why they should be more intentional about getting out and meeting new people, whether it's individuals or community. How would you recommend that they do it? How to find how to find the right people or communities, and what's the benefit? Why to do it?
I'm trying to connect the dots on what the connection really is because that part is not as clear in my head. But I think if you can grab the hand on the book of John C. Maxwell, Intentional Living, the very first chapter asks you this question. What is your story? If you have that question every in your mind every day, try to keep just talking with anybody in your circle. If you're not working, find a company to work. You don't have to love your job. Just work and learn from people, right?
Okay.
Talk and
So it sounds like you said earlier I've joined a bunch of communities, and I think what you might have been saying is you joined a couple of different businesses, and then maybe you also got different jobs. But in those spaces, you didn't just stay to yourself doing your job. Like, you really engaged with people, and you went and found the leaders, and you spent time with them, and like, so you very intentionally absorbed from, and then decided to also give to the people in that community. Is that a better, am I interpreting it reasonably well? Something
I
like that?
like that you're getting the picture instead of me and you paraphrasing it better.
Okay.
Yeah, I would affirm to that.
So
Yes.
you weren't really necessarily going out and looking for, like, if I was giving me advice, I would say finding communities that align with your values is a incredible way to do it. But that, like, so far hasn't been necessarily the way you were doing it. You just that you kind of, other reasons led you there, and then you just got really, you dug in, like, you got really engaged. Okay, I love it.
Yes.
So you kind of like really extracted the value from those circles of people because you really engaged fully.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you. We met because you discovered EmergePH, the community that we're building. Kind of curious, what can you say about the what you've seen so far? What do you like about it? Why are you there? And by the way, thank you for the energy you're bringing to that space so far.
Thank you. You know, in every engagement you are, it will take a person to invite you. And this person who invited me to Emerge is a very great pal. And when we worked in this same space before, the only thing I think 90%, if I were to compute it, we talk about is just ideas after ideas. And because of that, we found ourselves now in a very different position. And we're both learning together. Every time we converse, it's always like a like this of of knowledge. It's not agreeing or disagreeing every time. It's not like that. It's a bouncing. We're becoming mirrors of each other and learning. And sometimes we break our own mirrors because of that. Sometimes we build the mirrors again after breaking it. And that is fascinating because that friend, Keith, brought me in here and he's like, hey, I know this is the place for you and the place for us to learn. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. And when I punched in through and I was like, this is like the fast track growth and learning community if you want to get ahead to your own self. Because everybody here is like-minded. They have the same objective, develop the learning mindset. Rebranding, not just you, but even sharing your perspective because that can help the other person who's listening to you. It's a two-way process.
Yeah.
And another thing is it really takes somebody to model that. And when you model that, I see Gladys, guys consistently posting stuff, even Keith posting. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this and let's see where the conversation is. And you attended the talks and you found out that there are a lot of people even though you don't speak the same vocabulary nor have the same business venture nor have the same kind of family setup or friends, your brain is just connected in such a way. I came here to learn. I'm going to learn from you. You're my best mirror every time I talk to you. And if you're finding that community and all the things that we talked about in the show, the best thing to do is go Emerge PH and immerse, dive in. It's an ocean. It's a beautiful ocean.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Thanks for the plug.
Yes.
Yeah. It's really cool to, just having put together, really honestly, it's like curation, right? That's all it is. It's just saying, here are the things I value about learning and curating that, making it visible, and then the people that just are being attracted is so amazing. Like otherwise I wouldn't have met you probably. And it's just amazing to see people like yourself kind of showing up and appreciating what's there, but what's there is just others who also care about the same thing, and it's a pretty amazing thing. Actually,
Yeah.
community fascinates me. The more I observe, study it, and learn about it, it's amazing the value of just getting the right people in the same space. Love it. All right, last question. You have talked well, you've spoken elegantly today about the journey you've been on and some of the pillars of that journey and how you've really learned things. How do you see your future self? Like, what's the journey you're on, and what's your perspective on, yeah, your future? Where do you think you're headed from here, and what do you want to improve next? What's your next reinvention look like, do you think?
The reinvention here is looking at the current space of the platforms available to me to share my gift. And I did content creation because of EmergePH. I'm back to it. I took a pause because why? I didn't have a community to begin with that was supporting my growth. And because of this community and Keith becoming my SAP, my stretch and accountability partner, is like, okay, I'm gonna wait for you to upload it because I'm gonna watch it. And you know what's fascinating? He's the very first person who would react to every video, who would share the video, who would talk about my video and would give feedback about it. That's important. And that's where I'm seeing myself. I want to become a digital communicator and leader. I'm gonna flood the feed of every single person I can reach in every single platform. I'm gonna smuggle wisdom. Because you know what, Eli? Here's what I observed when social media came in. It became a clutter of graveyards of information that are unnecessary, that are unhelpful, that is just flooding your brain and it's just distracting you. That's the word. Distraction.
Mm-hmm.
I want to build a space. If I can just insert one video every day, two videos every day, get involved in the community, talk to people, coach people, I'm not as powerful alone, right? But the gift that I've learned that I can share, whoever hearts touch, I don't care. As long as I am in the platform creating that space, I hope if I create that content, it would reach millions. It's not about the number that I want. It's about the reach. It's about the touching. It's about you getting to, you know, divert yourself, going back on track instead of getting distracted with all the clutter. So,
Nice. Sounds like
yeah.
we have the same chosen purpose, and that's amazing. I haven't heard you talk yet about your plans for being a content creator and being a kind of an influencer, or somebody to
Yeah.
inspire people. Where you've already been doing this regularly lately?
Yes. Yeah,
What
lately.
what what platforms are you using for your content?
So I have YouTube, I have TikTok, I have LinkedIn, I have Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. All right, we'll put the links in this show then. Make sure we get them. And yeah, I want to make sure I'm following that stuff too. And maybe I would love to talk more about how we can collaborate if you would like. Actually, I've seen, EmergePH channel, the content that we started creating earlier this year. Gladys and I have always envisioned that we would invite people from the community to also create content. So let's talk about that too. Maybe you can contribute to our channel, and let's see what we can do together.
Yeah, we can have a different private discussion on that. It's
Sure.
essential for the community, and so I want to talk that to you in private.
Yeah, of
There is
course,
a
for
lot on
sure.
my plate I can share, so we can, bounce those ideas and see from there.
Sounds great.
So,
All right. So, Ludership, thank you for being here and telling your story. And I'm, yeah, just very grateful for knowing you, and also just the work. I love the way that you approach your life from a perspective of growth and learning and trying to tap into your potential, but also service. And so, thank you for that.
you know what? I should thank you too, because I I'm somebody right now in my situation where can I create this platform on my own or can I join somebody else? And I don't know again what kind of spiritual intervention in the universe led me here. And Keith was like talking about this, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna join. And yeah, because we're a team. we bring this together, we expand this together. If there are gifts that we share with each other and we can share with the world, I mean, it's gonna be an endless place of learning and growing. And so
Absolutely.
we're here.
Awesome. Excited to see what we can do together.
Yeah.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.